Number 25. Mr. Rogers was a Navy SEAL. According to this legend, Mr. Rogers, the popular children's show host, was once a Navy SEAL sniper in Vietnam, responsible for numerous deaths. It goes on to say that the only reason he always wears a sweater is to cover up all of his tattoos. As you may have guessed, Mr. Rogers was never a Navy SEAL, and he had no tattoos. In fact, he was never even in the military. This isn't the first time, however, that this rumor has been circulated concerning a clean-cut celebrity. Number 24. Bloody Mary. Possibly one of the most popular urban legends told among school-aged children having sleepovers. According to this myth, if you turn out the lights, look into a mirror, and say Bloody Mary 3 times, then you'll summon the spirit of Mary Worth, a woman who was supposedly executed for being a witch. Number 23. Kennedy and the Jelly Donut. The legend goes that Kennedy made a trip to Germany back in the 60s in an attempt to connect with the German people. While giving a speech in the capital, he told the crowd, "Ich bin ein Berliner," or "I'm a Berliner." Apparently, though, a Berliner is also a type of German pastry. Since then, numerous stories have circulated claiming that he was practically laughed off stage afterwards. The truth is, however, that the crowd understood him perfectly, and not even a single eyebrow was raised at this statement. Number 22. The Dissolving Tooth. There are numerous urban legends involving Coca-Cola. In fact, there are so many that these legends all now have their own category known as Coke lore. The most popular is that if you were to leave a tooth in a cup of Coke overnight, by morning the tooth would be completely dissolved. Like most of the other legends involving the popular drink, this is totally untrue. Number 21. The Good Samaritan. Circulating for years, this legend tells the story of a motorist who stops on the side of a road to help someone fix their flat tire. The person being helped then asks the motorist for his address to send a reward. Several weeks later, the motorist receives $10,000 in the mail. Over the years, this story has been attributed to several celebrities, most recently Donald Trump. Number 20. Walt Disney is cryogenically frozen. This is another one of those popular stories that most of us has probably heard. It says that Disney supposedly had his dead body frozen in hopes that future technology could bring him back to life. Unfortunately for all the gossip magazines, though, records show that Disney was cremated in 1966. Number 19. Sewer Gators. This story tells the tale of how several alligators were brought up from Florida to be kept as pets in New York City. After they got too big and violent, they escaped into the sewers where they now live freely. Dating back to the 1930s and spread by sensationalist newspapers, this story is completely untrue yet continues to be circulated to this day. Number 18. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Possibly one of the oldest urban legends on record, this story tells of a motorist who picks up a female hitchhiker on a lonely stretch of road. He then drives her home only to find that she's disappeared from his back seat. After knocking on her door, he's told the girl died in a car accident years ago in the very same spot that he picked her up. Number 17. The Kidney Heist. Immortalized on TV and the internet, this legend dates back to 1997 when an email was circulated warning people of a crazy new crime wave catching on in big cities. It usually involves a traveling businessman being bought drinks by a stranger only to wake up in a tub covered in ice with a phone next to him telling him to call 911. Shortly thereafter, he realizes that his kidney's been removed by criminals who intend to sell it on the black market. Although the story sounds feasible with all the craziness you see on the nightly news, even after the National Kidney Foundation asked victims to contact them, no one has come forward and the email has been written off as a hoax. Number 16. The Killer in the Back Seat. This is one of those popular urban legends that just never seems to die. It tells the story of a woman who's driving down a dark road at night only to have a strange car pull up behind her and start flashing its lights. As she takes off on her exit and approaches her home, the stranger continues to follow her. She pulls up in her driveway ready to make a mad dash to her front door only to hear the stranger behind her get out of his car and yell to her to lock her door and call 911. Only after the police arrived does she learn that the stranger was actually trying to protect her. In her back seat was a man holding a butcher knife ready to stab her to death. The stranger had noticed his shadowy form and started flashing his lights to get her attention, after which the figure would slouch back down in the seat. Number 15. The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. This urban legend tells the story of a babysitter that starts getting phone calls from a strange man asking her questions that get progressively more personal, and conclude with whether or not she's checked the children. She ends up calling the police, who proceed to trace the stranger's call. They immediately call the babysitter back and tell her to get the kids out of the house immediately because the calls are actually coming from within the home itself. It's at this moment that police arrive to find a man in the upstairs room where the kids are sleeping. Unfortunately, all the kids have been brutally murdered. Number 14. Humans can lick too. In what is probably one of the more disturbing urban legends out there, a girl is given a dog by her parents to keep her company while they are away. One night she was awakened by a dripping sound. She got up and went to turn off the tap properly and came back to bed, letting her hand hang over the edge as the dog licked her fingers. The dripping sound didn't stop though, so this scenario plays out several more times with the girl returning to bed and falling asleep with the dog licking her fingers yet again. The final time, however, she decides to try locating where exactly the drip is coming from. She looks around only to find the sound emerging from within her cupboard. She opens it up to find her dog with its neck cut and a note saying, "Humans can lick too." Number 13. Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? Widely circulated on college campuses, this legend tells the story of two girls about to have a big test the next day. One of the girls gets invited to a party the night before, and when she returns to her dorm room, she doesn't want to wake her friend, so she goes straight to bed. When she wakes up in the morning, she rolls over to find her friend had been brutally murdered during the night, and written on the wall in blood is the phrase, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?" Number 12. The Jedi religion form. This far-reaching hoax claims that enough people fill out Jedi as their religion on their census forms, the government will have to make it an official religion. In fact, at one point, thousands of people tried to do just that, but to no avail. Apparently, just because a large number of people check something on a census form, it's not grounds for introducing it as quote-unquote official. Number 11. Snuff films. For those of you who don't know what snuff films are, they're movies in which a person is murdered during the course of filming. Usually they're said to be funded by twisted rich people, but as of yet, not a single snuff film has been legitimately found, in spite of numerous rewards going to anyone with information on them. Number 10. The 9/11 tourist guy. Shortly after 9/11, a photo began to circulate showing a tourist standing atop one of the World Trade Centers with one of the airplanes in the background of the shot about to strike the tower. The accompanying story explained how the camera was found in the wreckage, but the tourist remained missing. Aside from all of the very inconsistent details in the picture, the story already seemed completely improbable, and several people came forward claiming to be the prankster responsible. It wasn't until recently, however, that the real culprit was discovered in Hungary. He has since apologized to the families for making light of their situation. Number 9. USA Japan. Yes, there's a town in Japan called USA, or USA. No, the Japanese did not rename it after World War II so that they could legitimately stamp their exports with the phrase "Made in USA." Number 8. The poisonous daddy longlegs. There's been a persistent rumor circulating for some time that the daddy longlegs spider is the most poisonous in the world but cannot kill humans because its fangs are too small. Where this rumor started, no one knows, but one thing is for sure. The daddy longlegs is certainly not the most poisonous spider in the world. If you're going to be careful around spiders, we would advise keeping your eyes open for the brown recluse or the funnel web spider. Number 7. The hook. This legend tells the story of a young boy and girl who drove off into the woods to make out, only to hear on the radio that a convicted killer with a hook for one of his arms had just escaped from a nearby mental facility. The boy simply locks the door and insists they stay, but the girl wants to leave. The boy then reluctantly takes off, and when they return home, depending on the version of the story, there's a bloody hook hanging on the outside handle of their car door. Number 6. The boyfriend's death. Very similar in style to the previous story about the hook, this legend also involves two young lovers stopped on an abandoned country road. The boyfriend gets out of the car to use the bathroom but doesn't come back for some time. The girl then decides to get out and go looking for him, only to see a dark figure in the shadows. She runs back to the car and tries to start it, but realizes that the back bumper's been tied to a tree. She then hears a scream and after turning around sees her boyfriend hanging from one of the branches. Number 5. The clown statue. This urban legend tells the story of a girl babysitting for a family when she calls the parents to ask if she can cover up a disturbing clown statue in the corner of the living room. The dad tells her very seriously to grab the kids, go next door, and call 911 without any further explanation. When she's next door and the police are on their way, she calls the father back, who then explains that they don't have a clown statue. Furthermore, the kids have been complaining about a clown watching them in their sleep, but the parents had written it off as nightmares. In most versions of the story, the clown turns out to be a midget who had been living in their house for some time undetected. When the babysitter came over, he didn't have time to escape, so he just froze in the corner. Number 4. The fatal hairdo. Although the hairstyle has changed with the times, the stories remain the same. A girl who is very concerned with her looks decides to wash her hair in sugar water and leave it wrapped in a towel overnight so that it will dry in the exact shape she wants. The next morning, however, she doesn't come down for breakfast, and when her mom goes to her room, she finds her dead in her bed. Upon removing the towel, it becomes apparent that she's been gnawed to death by either rats or bugs, depending on the version. Number 3. The dead body under the mattress. This legend tells the story of a couple spending the night in a hotel room that's filled with a foul odor. After a while, they can't take it anymore and call the office. When the staff arrive, they discover the smell is coming from the bed, after which they remove the mattress only to find a rotting body beneath it. As crazy as this story sounds, unlike the previous legends on this list, it's actually happened, and more than once. Number 2. The Halloween Hanging. Here's another urban legend that's actually based on several very true stories. In it, a boy doing a Halloween play for school accidentally ends up hanging himself from a fake gallows. As we said, it's unfortunate, but this scenario has played out several times in real life. Number 1. Buried alive. This one can barely be considered an urban legend considering how often people have been buried alive. In fact, in the past, many coffins were even equipped with strings that ran through the ground and were connected to a bell not far away. This way, if anyone did happen to be buried alive, they could pull the string and get the undertaker's attention.